Okay. So today is April 21st, 2021. It is currently 6:27 p.m. And as of today, there have been 31,602,676 cases of COVID-19 in the US and 565,613 deaths. In Wisconsin, there have been 591,636 cases and 6,718 deaths. 26% of the population in the US has been fully vaccinated. Can you state your name, and do you mind sharing some demographic information such as race, ethnicity, age, and gender?
I'm Charlene Bethke. I'm 64 years old, white, and a female.
Cool. And then what are the primary things you do on a day-to-day basis?
I am a public accountant. So I do accounting, tax returns during tax season, financial statements, and miscellaneous other things the rest of the year.
How has COVID-19 affected your job, and in what ways?
It has affected it a lot. When it first started, we were panicked about how we were going to be able to continue to work. It was in the middle of tax season and there was still a lot to do. So they had sent out one of our office supervisors to try and find some laptop computers in case we got shut down, and they could not find any anywhere. So we didn't get shut down right away. About a week and a half later, the order came out to be safer at home, and we had the choice of working at the office or working from our home. And about a third of the people at work worked from home, and the rest continued to go to work most of the time. It has been two very rough tax seasons because of COVID, because they have been changing the laws in the middle of things. And last tax season was extended through July 15th. So that was an extra few months that we were busy working, trying to help people stay in business, get loans. This tax season, and right in the middle of the year, they changed the law again and put it back to December 31st. So we're redoing everything. Our tax returns had to be redone. So it's been a very stressful year.
What kind of reactions were there in your workplace when they announced safer at home?
Panic. There was a lot of panic because at first we didn't know if we were going to be regarded as essential or not. They didn't know how tax returns were going to get done. At that time, we didn't know they were going to extend the deadline. So it was sheer panic by the partners, especially. It was, yes, we are essential. No, we aren't essential. Arguments about that. It just got very, very stressful. I mean, most people took it in stride and, okay, this is what we have to do. We had to call in outside IT people to get our computers all set up to be able to work out of the houses, and especially with privacy and having all the financial information that we have access to, we had to make sure that was all covered. So it was a couple of weeks there were very hard.
And you mentioned that it was difficult finding computers to go safer at home. What was that experience like?
They didn't know what was going to happen because they sent somebody out. They sent our office manager out to one of the big box places, the one that sells a lot of computers, thinking we would be able to we just wanted 4 or 5 more just to have backups in case we were going to be working from home, and they'd like to have it on their computers so that for the privacy. And she came back and said, well, they don't have any except extremely expensive ones. So good luck. So they ended up having to use people's computers that they had at home. And again, setting up all these passwords and having our IT people having to fix that up. And then the few laptops that we did have went home with certain people too. So it was different, because who would ever thought you couldn't find laptops?
Yeah. Was it hard to adjust to a new way of working from home?
Yes, it was. It was very difficult, because I'm used to having a desktop with 3 monitors. And I was sent home with one of the laptops with a little tiny monitor that we could split the monitor in half, but then you really couldn't see what you were working on. So it was very difficult. Eventually we did get to we brought home our own keyboards, and that helped a lot instead of just using the laptop. But it was still hard with only one little monitor. And you weren't able to print at home, so anything you were printing was still being printed out at the office, and anybody that was there then would take it off the printers and put it in your office or in your space. And every 3-4 days you'd go in and collate and get things put away and grab a bunch of more stuff to bring home.
So was there any change in how people worked and how people reacted over the past year in your workplace?
Last year was a rough year, and we thought this year would be much easier, and it turned out to be actually much harder. So people have been a little more on edge this year, grumpier, I would say. There's been more talk of people that are getting tired and thinking of retiring, because it's been 2 seasons now of high stress.
So you yourself are about to retire, I know. Has this affected your thinking in that way, this pandemic?
It's made me more confident about retiring. I have no doubt anymore that I am going to retire. It's just been a lot in the last few years. We also did move our office during this time.
What was that like?
Very interesting. Our lease was going to be up this year, this May. And they were thinking of just remodeling, but once this all hit and they realized how close contact we all are in, they decided they wanted to move to, and they were able to move to another building close to where we are with the same owner. So we got out of our lease a little bit earlier because we're just moving to a different building that they own. And we were able to design the building ourselves. So every person has their own office. So we don't have to be in contact with anybody. We're all got doors shut or open, but you're not right next to somebody with in a cubicle that there's no privacy or anything.
What kind of protocols were in place when you were moving offices? Were they sticking to COVID guidelines?
Yes, in fact, they got even stricter because we were moving to a new building. Anytime we were not in our office alone, if we were in our office alone, we didn't have to wear a mask or anything. Once we were out of our office or somebody else came into our office, you had to mask up right away. And during tax season, they have always bought us lunch on Fridays. So we were very limited because they didn't want anything that everybody had to use the same utensil to dish out or anything, even like pizza we couldn't have. So this whole tax season, we've had boxed, mostly sandwich lunches.
Okay, yeah. How has the COVID pandemic affected your relationships with your coworkers?
We don't talk as much as we used to. We don't meet like we used to. There'd be times where people would just be in the lunchroom together and you don't get to see anybody anymore. When you do have to talk to somebody, you're like at the door, they're inside, or if you have to get close to you again, you have to have your mask on, but it's not chit chatty like we used to be, and have group times together. It's pretty much work and that's it.
Has that affected your mental health at all, not being able to chat with as many people?
I think it has. I think it's gotten to where, again, you don't have that connection with people anymore. You're just in there, you're working all the time. You're not having any relief from it. You can't be sitting around or standing around just talking. I mean, we have now 5 partners and they each have their own little group. So we would, stand around in the morning and just talk about things, not even work, which gets you more relaxed also, not everything high stress. And then like on Friday when we had lunches, we'd be in the lunchroom talking to everybody. Now it's strictly grab your lunch, go back to your desk.
And you've mentioned partners a couple of times. Would you care to explain a little bit about what that is?
Oh, we're an accounting firm and we have 5 partners that they own the business. They're the ones that own it. And then each of them have their own staff underneath them. And we also then have office people that work for all of the partners. They do the receptionist, the office manager. What else do we have that works for everybody? We have another girl that does typing if you need. Well, we do still some typing and copying and stuff like that. So they each kind of had their own little section area that they work in. We were all one big office, but just little staffs.
Did that separation help keep people in groups, smaller groups, when you have to?
Yes, you could tell when it first when we started all getting back to the job, because I stayed home for about a month and then it just got to be too big of a hassle. I mean, it was just getting to be so hard with having to print things at work, not being able to just go to a file and pull something out and look at it, having calls with my boss, and then trying to get a hold of somebody else that's at home. It just got to be, so I went back after a month and I did have my own office. So that was another reason why I did go back. But you weren't getting together with everybody. You'd have one person or 2 people that you would talk to, but the groups, you could see it was much, much quieter. People weren't just standing around talking, which I'm sure the partners liked, but you do need some downtime, especially when you're working 6 days a week and all the long hours during tax season.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. How was tax season? I know you touched on it a little bit, but how is it different with being longer?
Well, last year, tax returns are due April 15th. And then there's also corporate tax returns that some are due March 15th and some are due April 15th. Last year, they extended everything till July 15th, which we thought was a good idea. And I mean, it was, but it also made people say, oh, I have much longer to do it, so I don't have to get my stuff in right now. So it stretched it out so much longer. So we were working the long hours much longer than we normally would have. And it just seemed that never ended. And then this tax season now, and during tax season last year, they started the payroll program, the payroll protection program, which was a loan, and government was giving out loans. And if you followed certain rules, that loan would be forgiven. So in the middle of tax season, we had to stop and help everybody figure out how much money they could borrow, because there was also stipulations on how much you could borrow according to how much payroll you had. And so in the middle of this, while we're working at home, we're also trying to keep in touch with our clients, helping them get these loans. And we would send out an email blast to all of our clients. 2 hours later, we'd have to send out a new one because they had changed things in it. So it was very confusing and very stressful. Now this year, they changed the law on March 11th of this year, which is right smack dab in the middle of tax season. And they retroed some of these things back to December. So any tax returns that had any of the stuff that they did that were done already, we're either going to have to amend them, or if they hadn't been electronically filed yet, we had to redo them. I've had a couple of tax returns that I've had to redo 2 and 3 times, which is not helpful.
Sure not. So on that note, do you have any thoughts about how local, state, or federal government leaders have responded, whether that be work related or anything else?
They've been trying. I must say that they're trying. And the only problem is, like last year, like I said, we would send out something, then all of a sudden they change it. I mean, there were days that we were sending out 2 and 3 emails to clients saying, nope, forget what we told you. This is really what they mean. They were passing things and creating things without actually figuring out how it was going to work. And then as it would go along, they would figure out, oh, well, that's not the way it's going to work. We got to change it, or it's got to be fixed somehow. So they tried their best, but they aren't accountants either. So they need more input from the accounting firms to actually know how some of this stuff works. And that was the problem this year on having to have the law changed in the middle of the year, because they hadn't actually figured out something. They worded it wrong. So the IRS was like, oh no, you can't do that. So they had to actually go back and fix the wording on it. And it's been a mess again. But they are. And I must say that once Wisconsin, at least, once the Fed came out with corrections, Wisconsin almost immediately changed and conformed to the Fed, which Wisconsin does not always conform to what the Fed says. Now I have a client in Arizona where they just came out on Monday with the new rules, which is actually after the tax deadline.
So it sounds like there's a lot of little things that could have been done better, but for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knew what they were doing. Honestly, this is not something that has ever happened before. It's never been even thought about. So they're trying to help the small businesses to keep them, but it's not always following through all the way. So they have to keep putting in little things to help it.
Switching topics now. How has COVID-19 affected you and or your family's day-to-day activities?
We have not gone anywhere. We always have taken a family vacation. We're not a big family. There's only me and my husband, and Christine. But we've always gone somewhere on vacation. And last year was the first year that we have not. But we did get things done around the house, so I guess that was a good thing. But we have not gone out. I realized one day that when we did actually we went to the store, I think it was, just went to the store, that all I have done for almost over a year, is gone to work and home from work. That's the only scenery I've seen. It's like, we finally did, after over a year, go out to a restaurant. There was nobody else in the restaurant, but it was nice that we had already had one vaccine, but it's been very quiet.
So you mentioned the vaccine. What was your experience like getting to it, like access to it, understanding when it was available, making an appointment, stuff like that?
It was, I understood when it was my turn. Getting it, we signed up on a couple of websites. We heard nothing from either one of them. And then from a friend, we learned of a spot where you could get a vaccine. We went online right away that day, and we got one the next day. So it wasn't we got it relatively quick, actually. So it wasn't as bad. And now I have family members that their physicians, or one of them, my mom, they had her physician called right away and had the appointment set and everything. My one brother works for a school district. They said that when they were eligible, they set it up for him to go, so he had no problems. Another brother of mine is a veteran, and he goes to the VA, and they called him when he was able to and had it. So none of them have had an issue getting them. And I think the thing was with us, we tried to get it as soon as we were eligible, when everybody was trying to get them. So if we got it within probably 3 days of when we were eligible. So that's not terrible.
Have you had any side effects from the vaccine?
A very sore arm. I was nervous about getting it, but I knew I was getting it. It just was, it's different. But I had a very sore arm, and actually tomorrow I go and get my second one. So I'll be fully done.
Yay.
Yes, yay. So now then, after a few weeks, we feel like we will be able to safely go out and actually go to a restaurant that's not full, that is doing carefully doing things, but at least we have the opportunity then to.
Yeah. Okay. Has the COVID-19 outbreak affected how you associate and communicate with friends and family, and in what ways?
Well, I've seen my mom twice since the outbreak. She's 86. She does have medical conditions. So last year for her birthday in the summer, we got together and sat outside, spaced out. And then at Christmas time, we went over and stood outside her patio door and talked to her that way. It's been hard, but we know it's for the best. And as a family, we've not been able to get together. Like Christmas was very strange for all of us. We come from a big family. We always get together at Christmas and Thanksgiving. And everybody had their own, everybody knew that this was the way it was going to be. So it was hard, it was strange. it'll be nice to see everybody again this summer sometime, hopefully. I had a great nephew born that hopefully we'll be able to see this year, this summertime. So it's been rough, but you do what you have to do.
Have you been able to reach out to any services that have been able to help with the rougher, difficult sides of the pandemic, or any family?
No, I mean, I haven't. I mean, this is just the way it is, and we'll get through it, and we see the end coming.
Yeah. How are people around you responding to the pandemic in your community?
In my community or at work?
Either one. Anyone you're around.
At work, there's a lot of them that, especially at the beginning, did not believe that this was anything, that it was just the flu, until their kids got quarantined, and then it kind of hit home. There has been a mask not liking them, and all of a sudden now a couple of the partners have decided they're not going to wear masks anywhere, even though the building has said you have to wear masks. So it's starting to get, I think people are just getting to the point of we need to, and some of them might be vaccinated, I don't know. It's just getting to be difficult.
How does it make you feel when people around you don't wear masks or refuse to abide by guidelines?
I don't understand why they do that. That we were discussing it. Actually, today I was discussing with one of the people that I work with, is why is it so terrible? All you have to do, you have your own office. If you're in your office, you don't have to worry about it. It's just walk into the bathroom or coming in and out of the building. So a total of how much time in a day is that? But you still have to argue about it and fight about it. It's ridiculous. Is my opinion anyway.
Has the pandemic and maybe people's reactions changed your relationships with anyone? Do you look at anyone differently?
Yes. So when this first started happening, there were a couple of people that I talked to regularly at work, and they were totally jerks. So they laughed about it. Their kids would cough at people and think it was funny, and I have nothing to say or talk to them or anything with them anymore, which is sad. But then it turns out, then you see what they truly are.
Yeah. Good for you. Has anyone you known gotten sick during the COVID-19 outbreak?
Nobody that I know. A different brother works construction. He's head of a construction crew, and he has had to quarantine 3-4 times at least. That was at Christmas time. So since then, I don't know how many more times he's had to quarantine. But I do not. We've been pretty good at work. We are a smaller firm. There's about 30 of us. But I know that my husband, there was an outbreak at his work. So those people I know of, I'm not like friends with them or anything, but otherwise I've been lucky.
Was it, how scary, how nerve-wracking was it when you had that scare with your husband's work?
you worry about it. You worry about him. You worry about it coming home. Now, he wears his mask constantly at work, so we felt a little bit at ease. But when this first came out, I was petrified. That's why I started working from home, because it was like, if you got it, you were going to die, it seemed like. And then as it went on and you saw that, well, it's terrible, but not everybody that gets it is going to die. So you felt a little more, but there's still times when, especially like a few months ago when the rate was so high that so many people had it, when we would have meetings, even though everybody had their mask on and we social distanced and everything, you still wondered and worried about, could somebody have it? What if somebody, and that was why they put a mask mandate in at work, is that if one person got it at work, we would be shut down, and that would have been devastating. I mean, if we weren't working for 2 or 3 weeks, we would never make it.
Yeah. So your opinions have kind of changed about COVID. Have you seen other people's opinions change?
Yes, I've seen them go from not believing that this was anything but the flu, to their kids being quarantined and this is serious and wearing a mask all the time, to right now easing up a little bit. I mean, they still wear their mask when they leave our building, when they're out of our office area, but you can tell people are starting to ease up a little bit. People are going to restaurants a lot more. Their kids are playing sports now again. So it's back to trying to have a normal life, even though it's not normal yet.
Has that change in opinion, change in ideas affected like how you think? Like, yeah.
How I think of like what they do. I mean, I'm still okay with them. I just don't want them to be close to me. If they come in my office, stay away from me. If I have to go and talk to you, because one of them is my boss, I'll sit over here on the couch, you sit over at your desk, and I wear my mask, and we still get along. But yeah, it worries me at times now. And I must say, because I have the vaccine and I'm getting my second one tomorrow, that has made me feel a little bit better too. I mean, I don't want to give it to anybody, but then again, if you're not getting vaccinated, that is not my problem.
How do you react when someone tells you they're not going to get vaccinated? Do you have any opinions on it?
Well, we do have a guy at work that has said, even though he's got asthma, he's not getting the vaccine because you don't know what's going to happen. It's like, yeah, but do you know what's going to happen if you get the virus? So we have had discussions on it. And then he came one day and said, I heard today that 500 people died from being vaccinated. And that was back when there was probably 5-6 million people, 7 million people vaccinated. I'm like, all right, you got 500 out of 7 million, 10 million. Well, what about those people? Well, what about all the people that have died from it? So we pretty much don't discuss that anymore.
Stray away from politics, the political.
Yes, so it was a rough year with the election and everything.
You want to go more into that if you're comfortable? No? Okay.
We have a very because we're accountants, we have very outspoken about people, about who to vote for and who not to vote for. So you just kind of lay low and let them do their thing, because a lot of the clients are also.
Makes
And
sense.
you just, if you don't agree, you just shake your head or say, yep, you learn how to do those things.
All right. What have been your primary sources of news during the pandemic?
Mostly the not social media, and that is the issue with the other person that I was talking about, gets his information from social media. So, but he doesn't believe in the mainstream media. Well, how can you believe in one and not the other? You got to take both of them. Most of it's been mainstream media or like CNN and things like that, not social media.
Have your news sources changed during the course of the pandemic?
Have my what?
Have your news sources changed during the course of the pandemic? Are you looking at different sources?
Yes, I never used to listen to like CNN and that, but now almost every night before I go to bed, I just kind of go online and just see the headlines and see if there's anything new. And we watch more, I think we watch more news where before we'd have it on, but you really weren't paying attention. Now we have it on and you actually are listening to it. And then you get mad.
I was gonna say, how has that affected your mental health? Like the constant news cycle?
Yes, the constant. There are times when it's like every leading story does not have to be the same thing. Every day, you don't have to tell us how many people have been vaccinated in Wisconsin when it's only changing by 100,000 or whatever. We can have a day where we don't have to have that as the lead-in story. So yes, it is. There are times, and there were times when it was right around the election, right after the election, and the virus was out of control, where I was having very difficult time sleeping.
In that sense, are there important issues that you think the media isn't covering or should be covering more?
They cover the virus all the time. Sometimes I think they may, I don't want to say overdo it, but they stress more things that are going to, I know they're trying to get people vaccinated and they're trying to get people to realize this is important, but sometimes I think they go overboard and that makes people think they're just saying these things, it's not real, because they go over it and over it too much.
Are there any different things you wish they would cover? Any different ideas?
I don't know. I mean, on the virus, it's like they cover when people are out, they cover the vaccine, they cover, I don't know, maybe things that you could do a little bit more, showing people you don't have to be in this big group, but if you went and did this, or you could do things safely instead of just saying you can do things safely. That probably would be, and that maybe would be helpful.
Yeah. Are there any things not related to the virus you wish they would cover more? Maybe things not related to the virus at all?
Maybe some good things happening in the world. Don't know if there are any, but maybe that would be nice to sometimes hear good news and not just everything about the war and the president and the ex-president and that's basically what's covered: the president, the ex-president, the virus. Maybe we could have some fun things.
I think that would be nice, yes. So as things are getting better, in vaccines and the virus, what does a post-pandemic world look like for you?
Hopefully going on a trip. I mean, we're hoping by the end of summer, we'll be able to take a road trip, not a long one, but at least somewhere where we can still distance, not be crowded or anything, but at least get out and go out for breakfast. That's a big one. Go out for breakfast and come and see B&B. We so missed coming up and watching the band and going to football games and just everything with that. I mean, we were looking so forward to all of that, like all the B&B members, I'm sure. That is a big thing because we were so involved in high school, and then we started as you were freshmen going and seeing the things, and we had plans to do it, and then that's all of a sudden just cutting off. It's not even a gradual thing, it's just totally cut off. That we're really looking forward to.
So knowing what you know now, what do you think that governments or communities or individuals should keep in mind for the future?
Believe that these things are real. Take action immediately. Don't pretend it's nothing and it doesn't really concern anybody and lie about things. Come out and be honest and tell everybody, and maybe it won't get so political.
Is there something that you think individuals should keep in mind as single people?
That they're just trying to protect you and trying to keep everybody safe. I mean, I just don't get why you have to. I don't understand why people, I mean, I understand people want to go out and they want to see people and they want to, but it's almost over. Just a couple, not that much longer. Get your vaccine and it'll be even sooner.
So do you have positive hopes for the near future?
Yes, you have to. You have to see that it's going to, a few months ago, I was not, but now, yes, I do see that it could be it's not going to ever be normal. There's going to be a new normal, but I can see that we can be able to do things. We'll be able to get together as a family. We'll be able to maybe go on a small road trip. We'll be able to have a 4th of July. We'll be able to come up to Eau Claire and watch B&B.
Yeah. So what do you think the new normal will entail?
Eventually we'll end up being back to where we were because that's just how everybody is. Right at the beginning, when now as we're going forward, there's still going to be spacing. There's still going to be limited, like at baseball games. And that may be for a while, but hopefully eventually things will be back to maybe not as crazy as they were at times, but everybody being able to do what they go places and meet people.
Okay. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you would like to talk about?
No. Make sure you get your vaccine. No, well, I do want to say though, I do think that the colleges, I know there's been people that are upset that they didn't get spring break or that and it's lousy what's happened. It's lousy for all of you guys, but they were doing it to try and protect everybody. And they're doing the best they can. because nobody's been through this. Things may have to get adjusted, and hopefully next year everybody's going to be back and meeting people and doing things, and not, and in a year, everybody, you can never forget what happened, but that they can enjoy themselves again.
Cool. Well, unless there's anything else you want to talk about.
No,
No? Okay.
I think we've covered a lot.
I think we did too. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for agreeing to do this. It'll be very helpful for the future to have these. So thank you.
I hope so.
Okay, I'm gonna end the recording if you want to stick around.
Okay.